when I first went to foster care, my first night, they put me into like a group home with like a bunch of other people. It was just kind of weird and didn't feel comfortable, and then he kind of just left me there. Didn't really know what was going on. The reason I went there was because my parents started doing drugs, and they decided to remove us from the house. After I left the group home, I went and stayed at my cousin's house for a couple of days, and I got reconnected with my mom, and then I stayed at a drug house with her, and that's when I got introduced to the life of prostitution.
I started looking for her on different sites such as Backpage, Craigslist, and I found her on Backpage. And I texted the number that was on the ad. I asked them what $200 could get me for the diamond. That's how she was advertised. And I got a text back that said good sex. I didn't want the guys to leave the hotel, so I went down there myself. In my head, I was full of rage and anger and sadness. So I went to the reception and I let them know, I said, hey, this is gonna sound really strange to you, but there is a sex trafficking ring going on in your hotel that my daughter was involved with, and she's a minor. The mother of one of the defendants came up to me and asked, are you the prostitute? Are you one of the prostitutes? And I looked at her and I said, in disbelief, no, my 14-year-old daughter is. And I could see something come across her face, like shock. She went outside and I could see her next to one of the pillars, and she was rocking back and forth and wringing her hands together and just kept saying over and over, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And at that point, it didn't hit me that she was a mother as well. So I went up to her and I grabbed her hand and I told her, I said, I don't blame you for what your son did, but I will get justice for my daughter.
Recruitment of these young girls, they'll think, well, it won't happen to my daughter because she's not going to the nightclub, she's not going to these parties, she's not hanging out with those people. But they don't realize that by just being down at the malls, being down at the bus stops, this is where the pimps are, and that's where they're hanging, and that's where they're prowling for young girls to pick up.
You know, one of the things that astounds me is the cold-hearted nature of the people who go out looking for these young girls to exploit, and how they scientifically target young girls as a commodity so they can make money.
These victims come from all walks of life. There's no specific socioeconomic status, ethnicity, or race of these young people. It can happen anywhere, and it can happen in our own communities, and it's important for us to understand that.
So most pimps tend to generally be abusers, very manipulative. They tend to use the boyfriend dynamic to get into a lot of their victims. And then they exploit a victim's immediate needs, so housing, clothing, food, and then as well as their emotional needs. So a lot of, young runaways don't have a stable family life. They provide that. They provide the protection. So there's a lot of manipulation that goes in, coercion, and then it's backed up by acts of physical violence.
He beat me actually really bad in the back of the car, and the only reason I feel like I'm alive now is because I was able to reach behind me and grab the door handle and push myself out of the car, and then I got up and I ran all bloody and stuff. I was in the hospital for 2 days, but if I would have been able to do that, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
They've been rejected a lot. They've been told that they're not good enough. They've been told that nobody's going to love them. They've been told that they're never going to make it in this world. So they develop these beliefs about themselves that we as providers and we as the community can help challenge for them. Because as we know, these young women are incredibly resilient. They are brave and they are strong. And we can kind of give them the hope and give them the environment in the community to help encourage and support them to leave the life.
Prosecutors and law enforcement in Seattle and King County are united in going after the demand side to make it clear, the buyer beware program, that if you come to Seattle to buy sex, you might need to plan on staying here longer than you initially intended. We're trying hard to get that message out, and all of our arrest and prosecution policies are aimed primarily at going after the sex buyers.
The vast majority of the people who are buying commercial sex around here are employed by local businesses. We found that one of the peak times that people are online buying sex is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So some of those people are doing that from work when they should be doing their jobs.
What is going on with men? That they feel either entitled to go on with these behaviors, or we realize that, we have no clue why we're doing these things.
The demand for commercial sex is created by men across the board. So any socioeconomic status, any ethnicity, the one thing in common that we all have is that the demand for commercial sex is driven by men.
It was a very compulsive behavior on my part, and I see this in retrospect.
But in the beginning it was about trying to find some peace and comfort within me. Whenever this happened, I was always in turmoil personally and lonely.
And it all comes down from a place of lack, from discomfort, inside the hearts of men.
We have a hole in our heart that we don't know how to fill. In our soul, we don't know how to fill. That toxic masculinity talks to me about, I can fill it with sex or violence.
They don't see the big picture of what's going on. They like to think that a lot of these girls are just out here for the fun of it. They're making money. They're happy to spend time with them. And they don't see the reality that pimp is just right around the corner. He's watching everything. He's controlling every aspect of their life. And if this girl doesn't come back with the right amount of money, they're going to get a beat down, and the violence is like you've never seen. And the buyers don't see any of that. They like to just believe that it's a nice, happy business transaction.
I knew about the harm. I knew about the violence. But I pushed it all aside. It didn't matter, really. I wasn't looking at that.
John's look at us in a way as if we're not really women, we're not really anything, we're just kind of there, we're just another sex toy that they just use and throw away when they're ready, and we don't have feelings or anything, we're just not people to them.
Obviously, if someone's online trying to engage in this during business hours, they're not doing what they should be doing, which is working. But it also has an impact on their relationships with their colleagues. It puts businesses at risk in a number of different areas. We've talked with prostituted people who have said that they've been taken to company premises to actually engage with men. In fact, 63% of the prostituted people we spoke to said they had been taken to a company premises at some point.
Most businesses, whether it's a hotel, a motel, a conference center, a restaurant, public places where people blend in, are at risk for this because it's easier for the buyers and for the victims to blend in, to maybe not be as noticed. And so really making sure businesses are paying attention to their clientele, paying attention to who's coming in and out. Maybe they don't even recognize that their business is being used to foster that exploitation.
The act can happen anywhere. I personally have been to accounting firms to meet with clients. I've been to doctor's offices. I know of women who have actually had a van in the parking lot of a certain business, and the clients would come and meet them on the premises of the business in the van.
As a prosecutor for a major metropolitan area, this has been an eye-opening experience. Seeing the true human devastation that commercial sexual exploitation and the trafficking that feeds that demand, how that has just really ruined lives. It becomes a trap that you'd be surprised who gets caught up in it.
I think one of the biggest challenges that these young women face and that we as a community face is making sure that there's appropriate services for these young people when they're ready to leave the life, including housing, including support services, trauma-based counseling, that really understand how to work with this population.
One of the great things that I've seen that Stolenyouth is doing is they're coming to law enforcement and asking, hey, what are your problems? What are your needs? How can we help out?
The East Side is not substantially different than any other community across the United States, including Seattle. Regardless of a young person's age, their socioeconomic status, their family situation, there's vulnerability to exploitation in our communities. And exploitation is occurring for our youth on the East Side just as often as it is in other communities. The role of Friends of Youth's Advocate, funded through Stolenyouth, is to respond with comprehensive and compassionate case management to youth who are at risk of exploitation or who have been exploited, giving them a partner to walk with them as they achieve and identify their life goals.
So the prevalence is huge. The demand side is just huge. It is happening all over the United States, every minute, every second of every day.
We see that lots of businesses are really engaged with trying to be part of the solution to this problem, and that's fantastic. We value the support of organisations like Stolenyouth, who are in turn supported by the local business community, and that philanthropy is a wonderful way that businesses can engage.
Stolenyouth has been a crucial organization to this community in the last couple years. Not only are they bringing awareness to the community, but they're also providing funding to different programs who are helping these young people get out of the life and helping these young people to develop a happy and healthy future.